Okay, recording in progress. Hi, so I hope you can all see me and hear me. And so to introduce myself, my name is Jane, and I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Melbourne. So my main work is is actually study voice assistants and conversation agents. So most recently, I became more interested in using GPT-3 to power chatbots. So I wonder, in this tutorial, do we also need to know our only two audience? What are your backgrounds? Or I can continue to the content. Can the host tell me? Okay. So I guess I can just start. If you have any questions, please let me know. And before we go into the tutorial, I want to mention that we all know since last year, December 1st, when ChatGPT was released, everyone kind of become crazy about it. Even if you go on TikTok, there's hundreds of thousands of TikToks are talking about how to use ChatGPT to do stuff. What I mean is that the GPT model, especially the pre-trained language models and other generative AI models are changing really, really fast. So it's possible something I talk in this tutorial might not be the most recent or the most state-of-the-art methods. So I will consider this is more like a co-learning journey. Anyway, so if you have any questions, just post. I'm monitoring the chat in real time. All right. Okay, so as you may know from the slides, it's today we are talking about advanced GPT techniques. I'm pretty sure if you attend this tutorial or if you attended tutorials previously, I'm pretty sure I can just assume that you've worked with ChatGPT to do stuff. So you may wonder, what are other things we can do to make the generation, the text to have better quality. So before we go to that, let us run through some concepts that I think will really help you to understand the whole thing. So the first is called zero-shot learning. So basically, zero-shot learning, the ChatGPT has zero-shot learning capabilities. So basically means that if you send anything, put anything to the ChatGPT, it can answer your questions, even though the generation quality is not always guaranteed. So basically it means that if you want the model to give you a list of pets name, you don't need to provide some examples. In comparison to zero-shot, we have one-shot learning. So here I have one example. So one-shot learning is basically you provide the model one example, and then you basically based on the one example, the model can produce another, replicate something similar to your example. Here I have a conversation with ChatGPT. So basically, you can see from my message, I provided it an example, like pet dog, and the name will be Becker. I'm not really good with naming pets in English. So then I wanted to name my cat, then it can directly generate Luna. So it's actually quite fascinating because in my initial message, I didn't really specify what I wanted the model to generate, but somehow ChatGPT kind of figured out how to do this. And then think about it, if we have more examples. Let's say here I have example. I still want the ChatGPT to give me name my pet. So I give some couple examples like dog, cat, elephant. But then I give it to a new example, parrot. It gives me a name called Will. So few-shot learning is basically you provide the model with a few more examples, then you see whether the model can generate a higher quality generations. These are quite common techniques to be used, I would say, ChatGPT era, because I think nowadays people just consider ChatGPT to be more like you wanted to generate something for you, but you rarely provide it with specific examples. But if you want to try this, you can actually try to, let's say, what's like if you're a content writer, I think you can provide it with some of your writing, then ask it to generate something quite similar in your style, so that it can be something you want to keep in mind when you want to write a better prompt for ChatGPT. Back in 2022, there's a very kind of famous paper which kind of brought the whole prompt engineering to people's to people's eyes. It's called a chain of thought prompting. So basically, at that time, we didn't have ChatGPT. Most people were still experimenting some random crazy stuff with GPT-3. I don't know if you remember, but when ChatGPT first came out, you can easily trick it, right? You can easily trick it to do some very poor math because it's not optimized for math. So basically, in the paper, chain of thought, they find that one easy step can help can help the model to generate a better quality kind of generations. You can see. So on the left, we have some few short learning. You provided a few examples, then to see whether the output answer is correct. But the most important thing in chain of thought is basically you add one simple sentence, which is called let's think step by step. So by adding this sentence in the end of the prompt, magically, the output, the GPT-3 somehow learn how to do reasoning. So I guess starting from here, people are become quite creative in terms of building their prompts. I remember there are some prompts, some like old prompts on Twitter, whereas you want before the Copilot, you want the GPT model, GPT-3, to be a good Python programmer. You simply add one sentence in the end. So basically you add, I'm an expert Python programmer. So that by simply adding that sentence, you can dramatically improve the code quality that GPT-3 generated. In my own research, we try to use GPT-3 to power chatbots for different kind of in different topics. Like I want the chatbot to ask people sleep, or I want the chatbot to ask for people's eating habits or like food diary. So basically, following all these prompt engineering kind of tricks, I gave the chatbot an identity. Say, oh, I'm a dietitian, or I'm a sleep expert. By adding these two sentences into my chatbot prompts, I find that gave my chatbot some domain knowledge, which is really kind of interesting. My chatbot can then learn, no, if you tell it I had kimchi fried rice, it will automatically know that you're you're eating Korean food. So those are things you might want to consider when you try to build better prompts. But so the question is, what if you want to do more like specific things with the GPT-3, GPT-4 models? What are your options? So I guess that's why it brought us to two kind of two methods that I'm going to talk about. So there are two approaches. I'm not sure how much you know about machine learning or how much you know about the pre-trained models. So basically all the models that have a lot of weights, that weight kind of determining the ultimate outputs. So GPT-3 or GPT-4 are like pre-trained models. So basically if you do fine-tuning on these two models, simply meaning that you train based on the already trained model, you just need to update the weights a little bit. So then you can actually optimize the model for your own specific tasks. But actually, there's another way to build models, to kind of fine-tune the large language models. At least for GPT-3 from OpenAI, we can use the embedding API provided by OpenAI. So in this tutorial, we will basically cover these two approaches. At least I will try to give you a high level understanding of the kind of like what are these two methods and how they are similar, like why they are different, and how do you choose. All right. So on OpenAI cookbook, I'm pretty sure the cookbook is hosted on GitHub. So basically it says that base GPT models do a good job at answering questions when the answer is contained within the paragraph. However, if the answer isn't contained, the base models tend to try their best to answer anyway, often leading to, I don't know how to pronounce the word, but basically when the initial release of ChatGPT, you can see that how easily it can hallucinate. That's what the researchers call it. GPT-3 ChatGPT have a tendency to have hallucinations because it tends to generate content that seems logical and sensible, but actually is totally wrong. So by this idea, we can actually try to kind of build better prompts, then try to build better prompts in order to get a better quality generation. But the question is, we don't really have that many resources or time to try out different prompts. So how do we do that? How do we build better prompts, but in a more automated way? So that's why I'll take an example of like Q&A chatbots. So you can use embedding API to build a Q&A chatbot. Let's say you want to build a chatbot for your customer service, like in a bank, or you want to build a chatbot for specific domain knowledge. So with that, you can simply use embedding to do it. So in this approach, somehow I still call it a fine-tuning, but it's actually not exactly fine-tuning. But basically, the procedure you want to follow is to first you need to have your own training data set, and then you want to. So basically, the idea is pretty simple. You have your own data set, then you use the embedding API. And with that, you can actually try to kind of map, with embedding, you tokenize the documents. So then once you run the model will try to fetch the most relevant information to your question, then append that into the final prompts. In that sense, the prompt will contain additional context to make GPT-3 to kind of answer the right questions. Yeah, so basically it's just like building prompt, but using a. Oh, there's an echo from your voice. Let me try to put on my. Sorry. All right, I hope this will solve the issue. Lilian, do you hear other echo? I hope not. Great, thank you. So back to our fine tuning. So basically, I want to explain the kind of concept is that with embedding, we can build prompts that contain the relevant information prior to sending the request to the GPT-3 API. So basically, here let's come to the issue. There's an example. If you simply ask OpenAI GPT-3, like who won the 2020 Summer Olympics men's high jump, it will generate some seemingly correct information, but which was actually incorrect. That's why we need to provide better prompts. And if we update the prompt by providing it a context, even though the context seems quite complicated, but because the answer already is included in the context, then the OpenAI, the GPT-3 can actually answer the question correctly. So I hope this kind of explains the whole embedding thing, how the embedding thing works. So basically, process is that you pre-process the document because to achieve better quality generation of better quality training data set, you always need to process the document, and it's actually, I think,
So GPT-3 is basically built to predict the next word based on the previous text. So basically, the document you provided is quite similar. And then once you have the embedding, you try the document embedding will try to find the most similar document to the question embedding, and yeah, that's the process. And the embeddings are pretty good for domain-specific apps. Assuming you have high-quality data set on your end, then you can do the same procedure to kind of embed the relevant informations to each prompt. Then you can send that prompt to the GPT-3 API. So I have a few examples, but one issue with this approach is that because the GPT-3 API has the limited token. So basically, if the initial context is too long, it means that the input from users will have to be kind of short. So that's kind of like the drawback of using embedding. But on the other hand, embedding is actually, I think it will be faster and easier to train than the fine tuning that I'm going to talk about. So for fine tuning, basically, you also need to prepare a data set. Training data can be anything. Let's say, I think I was making the example, like if the training data could be, if you're a content writer, the training data can be the thing you want to, or the thing you want to advertise, then you can put in your ideal generated text in the second bracket. It's actually a JSON-L file, but it's quite similar to JSON. And to create a fine-tune model, there are some procedures. Of course, you need to install OpenAI and set the API key. And then you can create, it's actually easier to write the code than using the embedding model. You can create the fine-tune models with this line of codes, then run the bulk commands, the several things. So first, it will upload the file using the files API, or you can use already uploaded file. Then basically, once you give the command, in the command line, the model will basically just keep running until the job is done. I think it really depends on how large your data set is, but I think one thing that I've been told is that if you try to fine-tune your model, for example, I think the week before last week, I was talking to a person who fine-tuned their model based on GPT-2, and he told me that actually even after fine-tuning, their chatbot is not as good as ChatGPT. So I'm not sure how OpenAI is kind of trying to making their system or API work, but I think it's pretty unsure, because it's possible that even after your fine-tuning, because your fine-tuned data set is quite small, it might not be, I would say it might not actually be as good as, let's say, GPT-4. But it's an approach and definitely worth trying. So to use a fine-tune model, you can either use a command line, which is like the line of code, or you can use Python. It really depends on how you want to use your model in what occasions. And there are several fine-tuning use cases. Let's say you can do language translations. Even though nowadays, I would say GPT-3 has done a pretty good job in translating languages, but you can also use fine-tuning to do chatbots and conversation agents, like provided with domain knowledge. Or I guess more interesting, which could be fine-tune a chatbot for your personal use. Let's say if it has very, very specific domain knowledge of your home, for example, that could be quite interesting. And fine-tuning can also help with content generation. I think just now I was reading one guy was using ChatGPT or GPT-3 to speak the language that person's son invented. So I think that sort of things might actually be worth investigating, because GPT-3 is trained, or GPT-4 is trained on the mass amount of knowledge that we know. So fine-tuning it with a small data set might not, like, especially if it's already quite generic, like health or sports, it might not be that good. And another two use cases will be sentiment analysis and automated summarization. Sentiment analysis could, I think, another piece of information I read online is that apparently GPT-3 or ChatGPT appear to be the cheapest labeler. You know, when you train a machine learning model, we need to, if it's supervised learning, we need to have the label for different like data samples. So initially, people are paid to do the following labeling. But if you can train that thing to train GPT-3 to do sentiment analysis, that could be quite valuable or save you some money. And then automated summarization. I think it depends, because I've tried to use ChatGPT to summarize certain like things, but I do find that it's summarizing in a way that I don't like. So I'm not sure whether actually I need to fine tune my GPT-3 to help summarize any research papers for me, but that's possible. So yeah, oh yes, now we have a case study. So write an engaging ad based on a Wikipedia article. So here are the prompts. So basically I won't show this so that you know what kind of things you can put in the data set to fine tune the model. You can see that we have a prompt, and so we have, where is the the data set prompt and the completion. That's how you get the results. So that's the things which I hope you can. Yeah, there are some I would say symbols that basically, I'm not sure if you know, but the symbols just try to like break lines and tell the GPT-3 to know it is the end, just like in the end put end. Okay, so I think lastly we want to compare the embedding approach and the fine-tuning approach. I would say in embedding approach, it's basically just using the embedding API to construct a better prompt, so that it will so that the GPT-3 or OpenAI will return the most relevant information. So it's like constructing a prompt rather than changing the weights of the model that you use. And so basically, if you have a lot of data, you might actually, I think embedding might be a good way, but assuming that you also don't want to add a lot of text in the prompt yourself. And like on my second point, if you want to use GPT-3 to reply to email on your behalf, I guess add a little bit more personal twist, you know, because now with ChatGPT or GPT-3, you can already have it to write a very decent email. But if you want to have the model to write on your behalf, like more your personal style, maybe fine-tuning is the way to go. Or you can also try to combine the embedding and fine-tuning together. But I will say ultimately, the goals of this two approach is kind of like help you to build the model you want for your specific use cases. All right. I think that's every content, but I think I might have something that could work. Yeah, I don't know why I'm the host, but oh,
Sorry, yeah, I think we can keep on going. Sorry.
I can keep on. No, I think I'm not sure. I thought I was sharing my screen. Was I sharing my screen? I don't even know. I thought I was sharing my screen.
Yeah, you're sharing your screen as well.
Okay, I was it previously.
I think at the beginning you didn't, but in the middle of them you start sharing.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think I've just completed what I prepared because I just don't expect people are gonna do any coding. And actually, I just sent the small quiz in the chat. So do we have any questions?